is wanting at best, but we'll give it a try. I passed out, or I didn't pass them out, but I left some scripture sheets on the front table this morning. We're going to be talking about some, not yet, Barb, some similar things that we were talking about with the kids. Back up. The members of the governing body have had the church cell phone, and what a wonderful, terrible, educational piece of gear that has been for me. Some of the questions and concerns that have brought to me, I don't understand. That's a lack of understanding on my part as to why things that have been brought to my attention are important. I need to learn some more things for them to become important to me, but I'm not there yet. I can't get that excited about if certain things aren't done a certain way, or if a schedule isn't adhered to. That's not a priority of mine. Maybe it needs to be. I don't understand it yet, but that's some refining I need on my part. And I had a whole litany of things that I wanted to just roar through, but a friend of mine suggested maybe not. Try to say too much at once. And I don't have any kids, but I've heard it said, don't ever discipline your children when you're angry with them. And he suggested that maybe you cool out a little bit, and because something isn't important to you doesn't mean that it isn't important to somebody else. And that thing that you might not care about might bring a great deal of comfort to that other person. So just get over yourself a little bit. So I did. And I don't know that much about diamonds or precious stones, but before I did what I'm doing now, I drove a truck for 18 years. And a lot of that, I worked manufacturers in the steel industry. I know about that. I want to share a verse with you from Proverbs. You got some of these sheets from this morning. That's where these are from. It's easier for me to go off of these sheets than flip back and forth in a Bible, I have found out. I get distracted and lost. This is from Proverbs 17:3. Crucible is for silver, and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart. Just put that in the back of your heads for a little bit. Barb, could you show the first slide, please? Anybody know what that is? Oh, it's not coal. Good guess with what we just talked about, though. Here's a hint. It's reddish. A ferrous type of rock, if that helps. It is iron ore. There are rocks that come out of the ground with iron in them. They get pulverized and heated, and they become this. But do you know what that is? Not quite yet. Those are not steel pellets. That is simply taconite, a very, very crude type of iron. If you've ever gone up to Sault Ste. Marie or to the Great Lakes and seen the ore boats going back and forth, if you're a history dork like I am, the Edmund Fitzgerald, they carry this stuff. That comes from the iron ranges in Minnesota and northern Wisconsin to the steel plants of Gary and Cleveland and Detroit. Go from those rocks to this, heat, some fire, and some pressure going on. Okay, Barb, what's next? Okay. And this is what's down in Gary and Cleveland and Toledo and Detroit. This is a blast furnace. Someone maybe a little... Mike, where's your favorite football team from? Pittsburgh. Okay, so Mike Woods could probably tell you about this. This is a blast furnace. Those pellets, those taconite pellets, will get dumped into that thing along with some limestone and a little bit of coke, which is a refined form of coal, and it starts the steel making process. And some air is shot in, and it starts to become steel as it's heated again. Mike, does this sound right? The temperature inside that thing's about 4,000 degrees? Okay. So, I hate summertime, and I start to whine when it gets much above 80. Well, that's 4,000 degrees in that bad boy. And those rocks that became taconite are now starting to become steel. Okay, Barb, what's next? The ladle. Mike, what's that stuff coming out? Molten steel. That stuff that's being poured, like you might pour juice after church, or a glass of milk, or whatever else, that is liquid steel coming out of there. Next verse is Moses talking to the Israelites. But as for you, the Lord took you and brought you out of the iron melting furnace. And what he was talking about was the crucible of Egypt, out of Egypt. The people of his inheritance as you are now, to inherit the kingdom of God. This is taking place as the Israelites have escaped Egypt. The Israelites. They've escaped Egypt. They've come across the Red Sea. Moses parted the waters, brought them back down on Egypt's army. They wandered the desert for 40 years. They got the 10 Commandments. They're looking at Canaan. They're about to come to the promised land. Moses can't go. Talk about why a little bit later sometime. But Moses couldn't get there, so he's talking to his people. But as for you, the Lord took you, brought you out of the iron melting furnace, out of Egypt, to be the people of his inheritance. You are now. So they're about to inherit everything that they had coming to them, but only after they had all that misery and garbage in Egypt, wandering around for 40 years, and all the other stories we have about the Israelites when God had to do this to kind of break them. And those rocks and taconite and other minerals are being broken down into there, and now they're being released in their iron furnace as the Israelites were being released into the promised land. Okay, Barb, what's the next slide? Okay, the steel is out of the furnace. That's a slab of steel. It's being rolled back and forth, get molded into something. It'll go through this. It's still liquid hot. It's not liquid yet, but it's still, you can still bend it, shape it. The workers will run that back and forth across those rollers, get the shape they want, kind of like God molds us as he wants us. Yeah, I've heard said, he is the potter, we are the clay. I don't know anything about clay, but I know a little bit about this stuff. So God has to heat us up, make us uncomfortable, put us in the crucible to get us to where he wants us. Barb, what's next? Here we go, back and forth on the images. It's cooling a little bit. It's hard to see, but they're changing shapes. And this thing will gradually, that big ingot, will gradually get elongated and thinner and thinner and thinner, but only while it's hot enough to be worked. Barb, what's next? Now we're rolling that. See how thin it got from where it was? That's getting rolled up. That's called, wait for it, a hot rolled coil. Still hot, still formed. Barb, what's next? This is what that becomes. Something worked with, and this is what I hauled around on my truck to give you some perspective, that block right there is about a 10 by 10 chunk of wood to hold it in place. That thing right there probably weighs about 48,000 pounds. That's just one part of that whole ladle. But now, okay, we've got a piece of hot rolled coil that we can work with. It's still not real useful though. Barb, what's the next slide? This stuff is. Pretty sure George and Henry could do something with those things. Maybe I could if they showed me how to. Those are stainless steel parts and tools that can be used. Barb, what's next? If that's not your thing, how about a chafing dish? We love potlucks around here. I love food in general. There's some goodies in there. Look at that pretty thing. Maybe a little bit more my speed is the stainless steel Stanley thermos. Barb, can you go to the next one, please? All right. So, went from rocks, chafing dish, or a thermos. Before that could happen, those rocks had to go through quite a process, much like we do. Not always pleasant. From Malachi. There are a couple different things you can take away from this, and I'll read through it, and then I'll talk about what I was getting at in this. Interesting how here over we have 20 different people. There would probably be 20 different versions of what was taken away from this, but we'll get to that in a minute. But who can endure the day of his coming? Who can stand when he appears? For he will be like a refiner's fire or a launderer's soap. Sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold or silver. The Lord will have men who will bring offerings in righteousness. And like I said, there's a couple different messages you could take away from that. Straighten up and fly right. Be a good giver, give for the right reasons. But what I want this morning, what I'd like you to take away from that, just because you're going through hard times, God will present those to you. Like Job, we talked about a few weeks ago. I've had to deal with some garbage in my life, but I've never had everything taken away from me and then had 3 knuckleheads come and tell me all the things I was doing wrong, and this was why happening. Maybe God was refining me. Maybe putting that cell phone in my possession that I mysteriously, magically, mystically keep forgetting to pass off, even though it's been offered up to be taken from me. I keep forgetting it. Maybe that's God's way of saying, no, I think we're going to test you a little bit more. You're going to forget the phone, and you're going to have to deal with all the knuckleheads calling you. And by knuckleheads, I've had people calling, offering aerial photographs of the church. And what a wonderful marketing thing that will be for our church. Please give me a call back. We're a wonderful roofing company. Let us call in and give you an estimate. We have a pretty competent roofing guy sitting in the coat over there at the end of that pew. I'm pretty sure if Henry needs something done, he's going to know how to make it happen. Somebody called about, some type of internet service. Kristen is not here. Left. Kristen is very good at that. She takes care of that. And May knows about this. I got a call yesterday from one of our neighbors that said, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but you've got a Donald Trump sign in your front yard. Okay, no, I didn't, but thank you. And I called May, and I asked her to remove it and throw it in the trash, as I would. And if that's your thing, cool. If it had been a Hillary or anyone else, we would have done the same thing. If Trump's your man, cool. If Hillary's your woman, cool. I don't care. I'm not here to promote any type of political agenda. And I don't think our front yard is the place for that either. So I got to deal with that on the phone. And it's, we got a new cat yesterday. I would have much rather played with him, or even though I stink at it and get beat most of the time, maybe gone up and gone trap shooting with Pat over there. He usually beats me pretty soundly, but we still have fun walking around the woods and talking. Out in a deer stand like Tony was yesterday. I don't know, but who knows? Maybe I was just in the right frame of mind to deal with that. I don't know. Maybe that was God's crucible for yesterday, dealing with some knucklehead putting up signs. But back to the Proverbs verse at the top of the sheet. Anybody know what a crucible is? I know it was a book by Arthur Miller. Okay. A crucible is a very, 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 very small thing of that ladle. Same thing, smaller version. It's a crucible. You heat things up in it. Scott, our chemistry graduate, would know what a crucible is for. You heat things up in there and stir them around. Or the furnace for gold. Gold, much like the iron ore, comes from rocks. And the gold has to be extracted. That's what that furnace is for. But the Lord tests your heart. I'm not like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. If you tell me to jump in a fiery furnace, I'm going to tell you to go get bent and go the other way. I'm not going anywhere near that thing. Not going to get my big fat bald butt in a crucible either. You could probably throw me in that big blast furnace up there, but good luck. But the Lord tests the heart. And maybe our church is in a crucible right now, as far as finding a new pastor. Time to make that happen, and kind of a very fluid place right now in Whiting City. Test. Pretty sure there isn't any maybe about it. That's what's happening. And how are we going to deal with that? Lord, I don't like the word testing, because to me testing is a negative connotation. Maybe the Lord is forming us like that steel, refining us. Last bit I want to share with you, Testament, says, do not put out the Spirit's fire. I don't know, for as long as I've been going to church here, on an intimate basis, I don't know very many of you very well. I know a little bit about how Jen came to the Lord, but I don't. And that's, I don't like big groups, but if anybody were to call me and say, hey, Jeff, you want to go grab a cup of coffee? Cool. I've done that with a couple people here. And with some people, we've talked about some things that were heavy on their hearts. With some people, not so much, but it takes time. But I really don't know the story of how many of you came to the Lord. But I can make some assumptions here based on your butts being parked in pews this morning. At one time, something happened. God lit a fire under your rear end. Now, at least I hope that's why you're here now. Here now to put on a show for somebody else or to tell somebody that you went to church on Sunday, great. Glad you're here. Love to see you. I would ask that you take a closer look at that. But anyway, do not put out the Spirit's fire. Whatever happened to light that fire and want you to come and worship Him on Sunday mornings, don't let that fire go out. I know Josh a little bit when he was a young man. Maybe some of that fire came from camp. Maybe some of that with Emma came from camp. Anna, I don't know. I haven't ever been to camp with Anna. Maybe it's from something here at CEF. Maybe it's Vacation Bible. I don't know. That's hard to define. Not put that Spirit's fire out. Sometimes that's a lot easier said than done. still dark we live down in Oshkosh, and it was still dark at about 7:30 at our house because of the weather. Pretty good day to roll over back under those nice warm coveys. But I told Tom that I would stand up here this morning, but do not put out the Spirit's fire. Easier said than done. How do I keep that fire going? I don't know. I'm not you and you're not me. For me, it helps to be around other believers. I'd like to say it helps to read the Bible. It's difficult. That's difficult for me sometimes. And unlike Jess, as she was trying new things, a lot of times I like to go back to the same old stories that I like. If I was more plugged in with like a Bible study like Miss Christie is doing tonight, that might be better for me. Accountable. Maybe that's something we can think about doing here. But I'm starting to ramble now, so I should probably wrap this up. As you were. Okay, we got that one. That's something I'd like you to take away too. Maybe God isn't messing with you or just, trying to have his way with you. Maybe he's trying to take you from rocks to a diamond from a lump of coal. Finding you. Probably time to wrap that up. Ready to